Hey, welcome everyone. On today's show, I'm talking with Scot Elkins. Amongst other things, Scott is on the board of directors for the Motorsport Safety Foundation, which is certainly near and dear to my heart, as that's where the HPDE instructor certification program lives, and we'll talk about that. He's also an FIA official working as a race director with Formula E and WC or WEC series. And most importantly, he refinishes guitars, which is very cool. So we'll talk about all of that today. Scott, welcome back to the show. I know things are just a little different right now than they were when we talked. What was that? That was show number 54 way back in December of 2017. MSF has grown and changed, and the world of motorsport is a little different than it was back then. So
yeah, it's on hold.
Yeah. So what's that like for you?
It's a little bit different. I mean, it's weird because I set my life up so that I could work when I travel and, kind of not work, just do some phone calls and emails and things like that when I'm home. And, it's kind of backfiring now at the moment, to be honest. So it's a little bit tricky.
With your role with the FIA, I mean, you were traveling all over the world. Obviously that's shut down at the moment. Have you had this little thought that's gone through your head similar to mine is, oh my God, I may not get the same level with my airline, because I'm not traveling enough this year. Are you worried about that?
No, I reached the highest level with Delta, I think in February already.
Already.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I need a few more trips to get to my top level at United there. So, hey, I want to talk about a few different things, but let's start with the really most important things in your life, like refinishing guitars. How did you start doing that, and what does that look like? Just curious.
It's and it's not really refinishing; it's repairing.
Repairing, okay.
It's funny. The one thing I don't do is refinish guitars because I don't have the setup for it. I don't have a paint booth and don't have that type of stuff. But so I've been an off and on poor guitar player for a long time.
Uh-huh.
And so when I started my own business in 2015, it seemed like the right time. Actually, my father-in-law handed me a guitar and said, here, you need a hobby. And he's a player. And so it just was something that I started doing, and I started playing all the time. And the more I played, the more my engineering mind was like, man, how does this work? And, how do you make a guitar better? And if you don't like it, what do you do to change it? And things like that. So I took a few local classes. I was living outside of San Francisco at the time with a couple of guys, and then found a guy in Nashville who's a very well-known repair shop and is licensed by all the major guitar companies, and just struck up a chat with him and started talking to him, and then set up a 3-week program where I went and stayed in Nashville for 3 weeks and just repaired guitars with him for 3 weeks and learned from him, and that led into some other things and kind of just got me started in my business.
So when you talk about rebuilding guitars, is that from somebody doing the, wild guitar on the stage, smashing the guitar kind of thing?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes. I mean, most likely it's I've never had a wild smashed on the stage one, but all the time we get stuff in that's damaged by shipping or by a customer, or a child knocks it off a stand, or a dog's wagging tail knocks it off the stand or something, and it needs to get worked on. But the bulk of the stuff I do is what's called a setup. So it's not actually that different from racing. It's just a different vehicle. And so, you just make the guitar play better. You make it feel better. How high the strings are from the fretboard is called the action. Everybody wants low action, so the guitar plays easier and doesn't hurt your fingers. And so the bulk of it's that, and then there's a lot of repair stuff that comes in where they just need new parts, or some guy wants to make a mod to his guitar and change out the pickups or change something on it. It's the similarities between guitars and motorsports is really, really weird. How even calling it a setup, it's really strange, but it works really well. It's fun. The idea was that it's my my retirement job after I stopped working at motorsports. So, and unfortunately, with motorsports on hold, it's become my primary job now.
Right.
So.
It's interesting how, things change in our life, right? So you get an engineering degree. When you came out of school, were you thinking, oh, one day I'm going to be sort of traveling the world, being an official, race official, and repairing guitars?
No, no. I got out of university. Actually, I'm one of those guys who I had the opportunity to get a job and start making some money before I actually graduated from university. So I was, I think I was 6 credits from getting my degree, and I actually left university and went and took a job, and finished it up a number of years later. But I never thought motorsports was an option. You know, I never thought it was an idea. I mean, I knew the Indy 500, and I grew up in Terre Haute, Indiana, which is, you know, not that far from Indianapolis, and so I went to the Speedway when I was young and did a bunch of stuff, but never had any idea that it was something I could do for a living.
I think they do some sprint car stuff around there too.
Yeah, the action track. Yeah, actually, when I was a young kid, my dad, he worked for the public utility company, and he actually did all the replacements of all the lights and everything. He had like a deal with them, kind of on the side, where he would do all the work there. So I did spend some time there.
I got to think, if you grew up in that area, you can't help but be a motorsport nut at some point.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of everywhere. I mean, it's funny when I tell people I'm from Terre Haute, and they're like, "Oh, I don't know where Terre Haute is." I'm like, "Well, it's 70 miles west of Indianapolis, and it's the one town where everything in town is called Holman." Yeah. So it's Holman Avenue, Holman Civic Center, Holman Course, Holman Golf Links. I mean, everything's named Holman. So it gives you an idea of what it's about.
And I bet they're not going to change that to Penske, are they?
I don't see it happening. No.
No. So, I mean, you've had an interesting career in motorsport, and you know, you and I first met, Rudy, was when you were, what was your title at American Le Mans Series, and you were heavily involved with the merging of ALMS and Grand Am and sort of bringing all that together. And as far as I'm concerned, did an amazing job of bringing that together. But how did all that work again? What was your title and what was your official capacity there?
So I was the chief operating officer at ALMS and IMSA, because they kind of operated as 2 different companies before the merger. And so I did that, and I started there in 2008 and did that until a year after the merger.
Yeah, I think you had the job that everybody went, I'm glad he's doing it, because I would not want to do it.
Yeah, it seems I always have that job, whether it's race director or whatever. I don't know why I always get that one, but yeah, it was tough. I mean, it was what made me take the giant step, the scariest step I've ever done, which was going out and working for myself, because the year of the merger was just so difficult, and I'm not exaggerating in any way. You guys can ask Lauren, my wife. You know, it was 80, 90-hour weeks. You know, just being in the office all the time, and then, you know, building up to it. There was, I think 2013, we did both Grand Am and ALMS. So I went to both of those races, you know, that year. So that was 24, 25, 26 races. And the whole time doing that. And I moved to Daytona, and it was a lot, man. It was a lot. And I'm sure I made a lot of mistakes. I'm sure I could have, you know, put my hand up and asked for more help and done things in a different way. But unfortunately, at that time in my life, that was how I worked. So it was hard. It was really hard, but I got lucky because I was able to step away from it and still, you know, and I still kept for the first 6 or 7 months, I kept a contract with them, so to still help them work through the DPI stuff. And I did a lot of the work on that before I left. So, but yeah, it's an interesting world.
Well, maybe we'll get back to that whole kind of world when we talk about Formula E and some WEC stuff and things like that. But let's talk about Motorsport Safety Foundation, the MSF, and the HPDE, which somebody the other day said, what the heck is HPDE? High Performance Driver Education. So the HPDE instructor certification program, obviously, well, not obviously, but obvious to you and I, we've been working on this together now for 32 years, I think it's been, hasn't it? At least.
I guess it's a couple of decades.
Yeah,
for sure.
Seems like that, but it's been, I don't know, 3 or 4 years or something like that. We've been working on it, and you know, there are a lot of I think we've had a lot of wins. I think we've had some losses along the way. I think we've had some challenges. And since I guess, well, you and I are both on the board. We're minus one other person from the board here on this podcast. So why don't we pretend we're having a little bit of a board meeting and go, what's our big challenges going forward with the MSF's instructor certification program? Let's just talk about it in public, because I think one of the things you and I are both big fans of is this idea of transparency and letting people know kind of what we're doing and how we're doing it. And you know, I could almost start with the fact that, having said that, we probably haven't done a good enough job of communicating everything.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, it's hard. It's hard trying to manage something that seems to take a lot of your time, and you know, at the moment I think we've got something like 3,000 people that have had some kind of touch point to the MSF certified program. And the HPDE program is, we call it certified. So whenever I say the word certified, that's what it is. But, you know, so we have a lot of people that we've touched, but we've had a lot of, you know, we've had wins, like you said. Getting the program started and getting it going was huge. I mean, it was strong. We've got, you know, somewhere in the neighborhood of a little over 2,000 people that have gone through level 1. And I think we're budging on about 600 people for level 2. And, you know, so we've got a lot of success, but it's been really difficult to manage a nonprofit. And it's always been difficult from day one. When I joined MSF, it was always difficult because it's hard sometimes to get people to give you money, because we are a nonprofit and we need revenues to keep going and to keep the programs running. But it's hard to do that when you're, you know, working with racing and not working with, and I don't say this in a flippant way, it's just the only way I could say it. You know, you're not working with someone trying to, you know, cure cancer and things like that. So it makes it really hard. But I think our biggest challenge so far at the moment is we need to, you know, I think we kind of disappeared a little bit, and we need to kind of get back and make some things stronger. And we have the ability to do that. And so, you know, we've got a new board of directors, obviously, as you mentioned, you, me, and Eric Meyer. And so we're making some good changes, and I think we're making some good progress. So we'll keep going along. But I mean, what do you think our challenge is?
Well, and just to follow along that, I was going to say the one of the things I would say I would put in the win category is the advisory council, and
right,
you know, getting that group of we'll call them leaders in the industry, I guess. And that's not to say that somebody that's not on that advisory council is not a leader, but we've got a really strong advisory council who are becoming more and more active in helping guide and set some direction, and really kind of provide that customer touch point, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those deals where, I mean, we've talked a number of times, right? You have to, in order for you to do things correctly and do things the right way, you can't sit in a bubble and make decisions. And so what we did with creating the advisory council was we took everybody from the industry, and, you know, brought guys in to effectively tell us what to do, what makes sense for the market. And so it's been really strong. I mean, it's, to have those people there to help guide us is huge. I mean, if we didn't have it, I don't know what we'd do.
And going back to, you know, what you were talking about earlier about the challenges, and, you know, one of them is the funding thing, because is there a nonprofit in the world who doesn't think about the need for funding? You know, we're in that position. The flip side of that point, though, is, you know, from day one, there were people out there who were just going, oh, this is just a money grab. Yep. These people are just trying to make money off this thing. They're trying to make money off of me. And I understand when somebody says, this is my hobby, you know, and now you're trying to profit off of my hobby. So I can kind of understand it, but I mean, I know that
I'll be honest with you, I could never understand it. I never could. And that's probably a difficult thing to say, but I mean, you know, the part that was hard is and it's always that way. When you start something new that didn't exist before, everybody wants to know, well, why do I need this?
Yeah.
And, you know, why? And I mean, I've been doing this for 30 years. Why do I need this? And the reason, I mean, it's not like MSF just created this out of the blue and, I was like, hey, let's do this. It'll be crazy, it'll be fun. It wasn't like that at all. It was the guys in the industry that and that I got to know, the people from HOD and from Chin Track Days and the guys from BMW and Audi and everybody that's all involved now. I mean, we started talking to them and it was, how do you become an instructor? Well, if you're fast, you should be an instructor. And we realized that was not the right way to go. And so everybody told us they needed this. And so when you start something new and people don't realize that you need it, and again, it's a hobby, right? I mean, it's not something that everybody does all the time. And so it was really tough. It was really, really tough to get going because, I'm sure, honestly, you and I use this example all the time, but I'm sure the guys at the scuba diving instructing, the PADI, I'm sure they struggled the first time. There were guys that was, I was scuba diving for 20 years. Why do I need to take a class? Why do I need to learn? Why do I need to keep being educated? I'm sure it was the same struggle. Yeah, I would assume.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, we joke in a way that there's also a bowling association, instructors association, where they have some standards for in bowling instructors. So
exactly,
and
they charge a lot more than us, by the way.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. But those bowling balls, they're dangerous. Yeah. Think about it. A loose bowling ball. Phew, that is scary stuff.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Your toes.
Yeah. And I think that, I think we heard from the event organizers, but, we also heard from tracks, insurance companies, various people saying this organization, this group of instructors, they crash a lot of cars.
Yeah.
This group over here doesn't. What's the difference? Yeah. And when we started to look at, how they, the culture, the kind of the whole atmosphere, the message, and the training that went into the instructors, there were two very, very different things. And, I think one of the things that, we talk about with the whole program is, we're really just trying to we're trying to raise the standards for everybody. But if we could get that group over here or the groups over here who were crashing a lot of cars, if we could get them to improve and get to the level of everybody else, we wouldn't really need the certified program. But the interesting thing is it's the groups that are already doing a very good job.
Right.
Who are the ones who are embracing it the most because they're like, we want to make this even better. And that's been I guess one of the, maybe another win. One of the fun parts of this thing is just how many people have jumped on and said, yeah, this is fantastic. Let's make our sport even better.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it's been. And it is a win. It is a win that we've got. I was updating the website this morning, and I'm not going to remember now off the top of my head, but I think we're well above 25 groups that have accepted this at the level 2. Which is level 2 is that you have to go through a level 2 training program that's put on by an organizer in order to actually be certified to instruct from the right seat. So the fact that we've reached that part is a huge win. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
So maybe we should take a step back here, just because I'm sure there are people listening to this podcast who are like, HPDE instructor certification thing? Well, I don't even understand or didn't know. Do you want to kind of just do a quick little, because you did a video thing for the Instructor Summit in Indy,
right?
That we put on, that Eric put on a month or two or whatever it was ago, and maybe just step back and kind of give the global view of what is the HPDE instructor certification program and how does it work?
Right. So, again, it's called Certified, and the whole idea is to create a set of standards that organizations and instructors are held to define safety in the industry. And so that's how we started out. And so we do 2 different levels at the moment. We do level 1, which is an online, essentially a baseline education that puts everybody on the same page. It defines everyone's definition. It defines the terms. It defines a lot of the standard things that everyone should use in terms of, how you treat a driver, how do you talk to them, what hand signals do you use, little things like that. So it sets that baseline. And then after you pass that test, we send out a credential and send you information that says, you're certified. And then the next step is you go to an organizing body like the BMW Car Club of America, or Audi Club, Porsche Club of America, Chin, HOD, Ferrari Club. There's a lot of different ones. And so you go to them and they put on a training program for their own instructors. And what's happened previously is that they've sent in their training curriculum. They've sent it to MSF. MSF's gone through and compared it to a list of standards, and where they've matched the standard, everything's okay. There are a lot of cases where they didn't match the standard, so we'll do some discussions back and forth to help them change their curriculum to meet the standard. And then once that standard is met and it's approved, then they become a level 2 certified. So if you go and take a training course at one of these groups, one of these organizers, then you can become level 2. But it's all about it's all up to the organizer, because they're the ones doing the in-person training and doing all of the things in person. So we're basically, in a lot of ways, MSF operates a little bit like the FAA, where the FAA defines what standards and what terms are used for the pre-flight talk. And some groups do videos. I know I fly Delta all the time, so Delta has a video and you watch it. But it goes through and talks about the seat belts. It talks about where the exits are. It talks about the oxygen systems and things like that. So all of those talks are the same no matter what airline you go to in terms of the content. But the presentation is a little bit different. Southwest likes to make it funny. I've flown on United. It's not funny at all. KLM does a very unique Dutch presentation. So the French one from Air France is very, very French. And so you have the ability to see that different thing. And so we do the same thing with all of these organizers, which are we create a set of standards, but we allow them to teach it in a way that they feel can be most appropriate to them, most appropriate to their customers or to their members or however it works. So in that sense, that's a little bit of how we operate.
Well, and I think one of the points you bring up there is that, essentially these are, we call them minimum standards, but we certainly encourage strong.
I stopped using the word minimum. I just said standards. Did you catch that?
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Okay. But I think, we have put that out there and other people have jumped on that and said, oh, well, it's all about minimum standards. No, we're strongly encouraging people, go above and beyond them. Please do.
Yeah, and most do. And most do, actually.
Most do.
Yeah.
But until we get everybody at that level, and then the goal is over time, we keep raising those standards and we become safer and safer. And,
correct.
I would say the FAA has done the exact same thing for the airline industry. And like you said, all the airlines, even their pricing and the routes they fly and all that other stuff, that's up to them.
Yep.
But their maintenance and safety and all that kind of stuff, the FAA puts minimum standards into place and then says the airlines, go above and beyond, please.
Yep. Same approach.
Yeah.
Exact same approach.
Yeah.
And that's why it's important. I think, to the people that say, everybody, a lot, the big question that comes up all the time is, why do I need this?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you probably don't need it. And that's a horrible thing for me to say. But what it does is it puts you in a category different than everybody else. And it shows that you're interested in your hobby and that you're so serious about your hobby that you want to continue to improve. And I'm sure a lot of people can do that on their own. A lot of people do it through the work that you do and the work that the Instructor Summit does and a lot of the other things that are involved with HPDE. But we've created a defined path and a defined curriculum so that people know that what they get at a certified organization is defined and solid. And the great part about it is if you're certified level 2 with Porsche and you want to go work an event with BMW, at the end of the day, they still can say, they still have the right to say yes or no. But being level 2 certified from one organization to another really helps you establish that you've at least set yourself to some standard. It's a different way of approaching things. And, like anything else, I can't think of any off the top of my hand, but I'm sure I have some kind of certificate. Oh, I'm certified in first aid, right?
Yeah.
Now, I did that because I travel a lot. I'm in a lot of places with a lot of people all the time normally, and I have a 2-year-old son, and so I wanted to have that knowledge with me all the time so I could help if I needed to help. It's a weird analogy, but it's something that I wanted to do personally, and it's something that I wanted to have for myself. If I'm participating in the industry of high performance driving education, then you have the ability to have some kind of certification that makes you different than everybody else, and it applies to you. So, to me, I think that's a big part of it as to why you need it, and you don't necessarily need it, but why you would want it because you want to make yourself better.
Well, I think another part of that is, and I've heard chief instructors, event organizers talk about this, and it's certainly something I strongly believe in, is when this certified program was introduced, there were some instructors who have been around for a long time and who said, I don't need that.
Yeah, a lot.
And I know that puts up a red flag. Like, I personally, if an instructor said to me, I don't need that, I know it all, is essentially what they're saying, they would not be somebody that I'd wanted as an instructor. To me, the best instructor, the saying is, to be a great teacher, you got to be a great learner. Yep. So if you immediately say, I've got nothing to learn here, I don't need that, that says you're never going to be great at what you do. So I think, part of it is, we've had some people who are really experienced instructors come through the program, and some of them were like, wow, that was really good. It refreshed me, made me think about things I hadn't thought about in a long time. So.
Every guy that I've talked to personally that's taken at least the level 1 side, always say they got something out of it. And a lot of times, and I don't, I could make up a percentage, but I don't have to. But most of the time they're like, look, man, I've been doing this for a long time and I still got something out of it. So, and that's the type of person who, wants to do, the thing that keeps popping into my head is because I worked for Toyota for a little while. Mm-hmm. And Toyota has a word called Kaizen.
Yeah.
And as I'm sure you know, and that means continuous improvement. So that's something that you have. And when you work for Toyota, that's something that's in your head all the time. And it's not just, getting the cars off the assembly line. It's how does the lunch line work? And how does clocking in when you get to the factory work and things like that. So it's trying to improve stuff all the time. And I learned a lot from the Toyota production system in terms of how you operate. And then for me, that always pops into my head is that, I'm as a human being, I, at least myself, am always trying to improve. I don't always do a good job of it, but I always try. And so that's the same thing, that applies to me, is that we're kind of applying Kaizen to the HPDE instructor community.
Yeah. And I'd be the first to admit, we weren't perfect from the very beginning. Just launching the level 2 program was a huge challenge because the level 2 program requires role play, and it requires some role models. Yep. And these are instructors who are to train instructors, and yet they haven't been trained on how to train instructors. So where do you start? Well, we kind of had to start somewhere. And I'll admit some of the first ones were a little bit messy. They were far from perfect, but they're getting better and better and better. And then those role models, those instructors who can play that role of the student, they start to spread their wings. They start to get out and work with different organizations, and that starts to build the whole thing. So I would say we definitely, towards the end of 2019, going into 2020, I think we sort of reached a point, where it's starting to build the momentum. There was a small tipping point. I'm not going to say it is the tipping point, but there was a small one. And I think, hopefully we don't end up in this big lag here for a long time here, for many reasons. But I think if we can push a little bit more this year, I think we're going to see another tipping point later in the year as well.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's one of those things where, I don't know, people are starting to come around, right? They're starting to realize what's there, and but you're right, it was a tough road, and that's where, it's a little bit, it's another win. I mean, every time somebody signs up to do level 2, it's a win because they're opening themselves up to have someone review their curriculum and how they are teaching their instructors. So that's a huge step, man. I mean, that's a big deal to kind of, send everything that you've been doing for your people to some. Just, I mean, at the beginning point, it's some stranger. They send it to me and to go over it, and a lot of them are proud of it. I mean, a lot of them, I think we've got at least 3 or 4 NDAs on file. Because they're very particular about how they teach their guys, and they want it to be very specific, and they feel like it's an advantage that they have, and everybody has to respect that. But it's a big step to be willing to give yourself over to somebody for judgment, to be honest, because that's really what the process is. That's hard,
And I've been impressed with your ability in that area, because there are organizations and curriculums and information that have been sent to you that I have no clue about. Like, I'm sitting there going, could I see? You're like, nope.
That's the way it's worked. That's the way it's supposed to work.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's, to me, one of the things that I've enjoyed about working with you in this whole thing is just that background that you've had working in that world of organizations and, putting the processes in place and all that kind of stuff has been super helpful. And I think it's an area that the MSF should be proud of, but it's not one of those things it's behind the scenes thing and nobody really cares about, but it's important. I think the other thing that you talk about, there's certainly the pride, and there's the, we don't want somebody stealing our secret sauce. Right. The flip side of that is there's a little bit of that. It's not invented here. And that's one of the challenges we faced is, why should I listen to you guys?
Yeah, it comes up a lot, and it's fair. I mean, when if you've, I don't know, to use another horrible analogy, like if I have an apple pie and everybody in the world loves my apple pie, and you also make an apple pie, but, and everybody in the world loves yours. I mean, what is there to do? Like if everybody loves my pie, why do I need your help? But there's always the opportunity to improve. And so that makes it kind of tough sometimes, but, and for the most part, I mean, even the groups that have people that have non-invented here kind of there are factions and other spots, that's the good part about this program is that it allows individual groups to kind of step away from their parent group or something like that. Say if it's a car club or something, it allows the region to work on their own, and it can be a little bit autonomous. And so some of the regions believe in it and some of them don't, and that's okay. I mean, that's fine. It's just, it works the way it works. And it allows the individual groups to make the decisions themselves, which is refreshing and enjoyable, to be honest.
Well, if you've ever seen me in a kitchen, I'm going with your apple pie.
Oh, right on. Cool.
Yeah.
I've never made an apple pie in my life. That was just an example. So
yeah. Okay. Well, good. We're both in the same boat there. So,
but dude, my toast, yeah, forget about it. My toast is the best.
Well, there's not much I can do in the kitchen. Mac and cheese, though, that's my specialty.
Good.
Yeah. Okay. Now that we've gotten into the really important stuff, any last things you want to cover off on the MSF certified program?
No, I just think it's one of those deals where it's always been, and it's something, you said some stuff behind the scenes, and that's one of those deals where, behind the scenes, MSF has always been, and especially now, is just a small organization. It's never been more than a board of directors and 2 or 3 people. And so it's just something that, it's always tricky, when there's not a lot of time to dedicate to something. So we've fought that, I think, from the very beginning. And so we're just always going to fight that. And when people know, it makes it a little bit easier for them. But, it's just one of those things where it's always been difficult because we're small. And small makes it personal, which is a good thing. But it also makes it difficult when you've got 3,000 people, working for your, organization and helping keep the organization running. So it's just a little tricky, but it's just something that I always think is important to know. You think of a nonprofit and you think of big companies and big groups, and MSF has never been that. So I think it's just important for people to know it.
I mean, I think the good part about then, again, your variety of in your background and your versatility in all these different areas, I think is hugely valuable. I think, Eric's involvement on the board has been spectacular in terms of just his overall enthusiasm, energy, passion that he brings to it. You know, I'm hoping that I can bring some different kinds of background in there. But the most important thing, I think, again, is this advisory council. But I think, every organization needs a big picture. A strategy. Is the Good to Great book. Collins' book, has to have a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal. And, we've had some conversations about that. We were due to have a fairly major board meeting that has been postponed. Well, the in-person part of it has been postponed. And, it's one of the things that I'd say we are very committed to is communicating a better job of that, or doing a better job of communicating that and helping people understand the long-term goal. I mean, MSF certified program, while it's small, it's growing, it's going to stick around. We're going to make this thing work. More and more organizations are going to get involved. There will come a day where it will be as accepted as, PADI in the scuba world, or, the Ski Instructor Association, tennis, golf, whatever, all these other activities and sports, including bowling. We're going to have a program that is at least that strong, and we need it because we have to be honest. This is not the safest sport, and anything we can do to make it safer is going to keep more and more people in the sport and growing our sport. Yeah,
100%. I mean, it's not going to go away. It's going to keep going, and it's only going to get stronger. And that's, I think with both of us, that's personal. So we're going to make it work.
Yeah, we've had that conversation about it's not going to fail on my watch.
Exactly.
Yeah, and not that this is ever going to fail, but we want it to be much stronger, much more accepted. We want it to be it's a given. It's everybody. I mean, well, of course you're MSF certified, aren't you? Like that kind of way. And it'll get there. I can't say it's going to be there in 6 months or 6 years. I have no idea. But we do have a plan, and I think that's the exciting part for where we're at anyway. So
I agree.
So I want to just kind of flip things here a little bit and get away from that and finish up the conversation here. Talk to us a little bit about Formula E. And, I think there's probably many of us listening to this show, myself included. I've never been to a Formula E race yet. I've just never had the opportunity to get to one. Right. And, my own experience is, well, I would say TV as a whole doesn't do motorsport. Watching a race on TV is never as good as being there in real life. But I think I'm going to say, to my experience, has been Formula E on TV is not as good as other forms of racing on TV. And maybe I'm just biased, but tell us about why I should get more excited in Formula E, other than the fact that, hey, we're all going to end up there anyways.
Yeah. I started out the same as you, which was kind of funny. I started out the same as everybody, which was, there's no noise, and the cars are, not as fast as Formula One or whatever. And kind of, I honestly started out that way, and I've said that a number of times. But for me, what's interesting is that, and this applies more to you than me, but the drivers of Formula E cars are the things that they have to do during a race is just absolutely spectacular. And it's all on them. I don't know that most people don't realize that the teams don't get a telemetry feed back from the car. So the team doesn't really know what's happening on the car unless they get the information from the driver. So there's a lot of there's a lot of energy management that goes into Formula E. And so, you may have a race that's 45 laps and the track is, whatever, 4 kilometers long. But the truth is the car can't run flat out the whole time to get to the end. And that's actually not a whole lot different than petrol racing, because you see, even in Formula One, you see the guys, backing off and driving to lap times and doing things to make the strategy work. And so for me, I think that's just incredible. In Formula E is that the driver is doing all of that. They're reporting back energy readings. They're reporting back everything about the car and the way they have to do the regen. And just, it's not just driving a race car. It's a lot of brain work, honestly. And so for me, that makes it really exciting, just from a standpoint of the drivers aren't just, I don't think they're just normal drivers. Because there's a number of people that, we do these rookie tests and do these other tests, and people show up and they're like, man, I don't really know how to drive this car. Mm-hmm. Because braking is completely different because of the way the regeneration works for the battery. So I'm really excited. I get really excited about the challenge that the drivers have. And then as a former race engineer, I get really excited about the fact that you have to sit there as an engineer and try to determine a strategy based off of not having information. It's like the old, X plus Y equals Z. Well, you never, ever, ever have X until you get it from the driver. And so I think that's a really, really, that kind of intellectual side of it is really, really interesting to me. I also think the racing is really, really good. You've got, each manufacturer basically makes their own powertrain. So anything from behind the roll hoop is the manufacturers and the teams are allowed to change. And so with all the manufacturers, like you said, we're going to move to electric at some point. I'm sure that's going to happen. But with all the manufacturers working on developing road worthy electric vehicles, it really harkens back to the old days of, doing the development and doing the engineering on the race car and then transferring it to the road car. So a lot of those things I don't think people realize, I
have a few friends who are race engineers with Formula E teams, and as they talk about it, you're right. I mean, it's exciting just listening to them, the things they're doing. Some of the stuff in terms of the simulation beforehand, though, they simulate things, and while the driver's got to give that feedback in real time, they're told going in, at this corner you need to be off the throttle or gas pedal or whatever you call that thing over there on the right now. And you need to essentially coast a regen, for 3/4 of a second or whatever. So I find that part of it all extremely fascinating, but, I wonder, even you said, it's interesting that what the drivers have to do, but does the average fan understand that? And no,
they don't care.
If not, are they going to be excited by it? And I guess, what fans want to see, I think, is wheel-to-wheel battles.
Yep.
And I guess
we got that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's kind of the stuff I was talking about. I guess is kind of the inside story. Yeah. And if you're involved in motorsport, you're probably interested in that, and that's what makes it interesting for me and makes it fascinating for me in a lot of ways. But again, the racing. So it's one of those situations, and it's funny. I always talk to people. So as a race director, especially with a race that's only 45 minutes long, I watch the race, but I don't get to watch the racing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I'm always working on an incident or trying to keep everything kind of together. I don't say that in any way other than that. We're just trying to keep the race together. We're trying to figure out what to do. When there is an incident, we're trying to figure out, do we go yellow, full course yellow? Do we need a safety car? What's the right decision? How far away is the recovery vehicle? How long are we going to be under that condition? There's a lot of things like that happen. And so many, many times I don't have any idea who actually won the race. I walk out of race control and I'm kind of like, who won, because you're so busy doing other things. So, and then I come home and I watch the race on the broadcast, and, the racing's bloody good. Yeah. It's really good. And so it's, the speeds aren't that high. I'm the first guy to admit that, but I'll tell you what, there's a lot of these racetracks where, if I were to put you in one of the course cars or like in the safety car and told you to drive the circuit flat out, you'd come back and you'd be like, man, like every corner's blind, and I've got to be flat through this section, and it's still a blind corner. And I mean, they're street circuits, so it really, when you think about it, I mean, the challenge that is there is bigger in a lot of ways than driving on like a normal racetrack. My favorite thing, and I don't know if I said this the last time in the podcast, but my favorite thing is in my driver briefing notes. It's in there every time. I never take it out. It says the concrete walls are the track limits, right? Because that's what it is, right? Like we're not going to officiate a street race on a painted line. We just don't do it like that. And so it's interesting to see how big of a challenge it is for these guys. And so, being on a narrow circuit with 24 cars, regardless of whether they're going 300K or 200K, is still really, really good motorsport and really good racing. And so that's what the fans are. And you're right. I mean, it's tough to see it on TV. I think it's always tough to see it on TV. As a guy who's been to, almost every type of motorsport out there, you can definitely see it better when you're there. And especially in Formula E, the event is unlike any event you've ever been to. Just from the standpoint that, and I guess this is good and bad, you don't actually know for sure when the cars are on track. Really? Because the noise isn't there. Ah, right. And so it's kind of interesting. And what it does is it turns into an event where I see more families, I see more kids all the time, because you can literally sit in the grandstand and have a conversation with your family and still watch a great race. Yeah. It's just a different approach. And a lot of people are like, oh man, without the noise, whatever, I don't care, it doesn't work for me. But the other aspect of it from an engineering geek standpoint is I don't think anybody really knows how violent it is when carbon fiber hits carbon fiber. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, it's different, but everybody likes what they like. So
will we see Formula E on permanent road courses?
No, that's not part of the DNA.
Yeah.
So it's decided that was, and there are a couple of circuits. The circuit in Mexico City is the Formula One circuit. It's got a few areas that are street circuit like, but primarily it's the main road course. Yeah. But in a place like you can't. I mean, if you've ever been to Mexico City, you can't shut down any of the streets. Right. It's just not possible there. Right. They go in, it'd be upheaval. Yeah. So, but no, it's well, street circuits. I got to get to one of those races sometime. So you do.
Yeah.
I know a guy that can hook you up with a pass. It's no problem.
Well, I'll be knocking on your door.
It's just been it's funny because the last 2 years, I would work the Formula E season from, October, November to July. And then when July comes, for the last 2 years, I've been working Formula One races. Yeah. And it's really interesting to go from one to the other, and just kind of see how different everything is, because you're looking at literally a nascent. I mean, Formula E is only 6 years old, right? And then you go to something that's been around as long as Formula One, and it's just two completely different views on motorsport. I'm really lucky and really grateful that I've had the chance to do that.
Yeah, sometimes when I see some of your posts, obviously from all of them, but when you're at a Formula One race, Formula One still is the top of the pile, right? And
100%.
I got to think as a, I guess your role was assistant race director. Is that right?
Yep, correct.
I'm assuming that you're standing there in the driver's meeting. You're looking out there talking to 22 Formula One drivers. How cool is that?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Yeah. It's also ridiculous too, though. But the Formula E guys, almost all of the Formula E guys have been to Formula One as well.
Exactly.
To have Felipe Massa sitting in the front row of my driver's briefing is kind of crazy.
Yeah. Well, Scott, thank you for being on the show. This has been fun as usual, and kind of fun for us to talk about the MSF stuff together on the air and communicate, be transparent. And so, anybody listening to this and having questions about the MSF, what's the best way now for them to, I guess, contact us and that kind of thing?
Yep. Still the website. And it's motorsport-safety.org.
Okay. And, I guess, we will encourage people to get involved. If you had some questions in the past, this show helped answer some of them, or you think it should generate some more, share this podcast with other people, with other instructors, and hopefully we'll get more people understanding. And if you're already a level 1, level 2 certified instructor, thank you for doing that and being an ambassador in some ways for our sport, not just MSF, but for our sport.
Exactly.
Yeah. Again, Scott, thanks for being on the show, and I guess I'll let you go back and rebuild some guitars or something.
Yeah, I've got a couple. They're stacking up in the shop, so I need to get back to it.
Okay. Well, thanks. Thank you, and keep having fun.
You too, buddy.
Imagine excellent driving information for free. Imagine asking any question and having it personally answered by Ross in real time. Yes, it can happen. Ross presents Chalk Talks every now and then. Check out the Speed Secrets website for announcements of the next Chalk Talk. These are online question and answer sessions where Ross will tackle any and all of your questions and topics. The Chalk Talks are fun, and you can join the community for a virtual hangout with your Speed Secret friends. And it's a way to keep learning and having fun.